I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. DeSantis.
Director, and the reason why that's so important is because if top secret information is compromised, that could damage our national security, correct?
Yes, by definition.
And American lives are at stake in some instances, correct?
Yes.
You mentioned a lot of people are upset that there are no consequences for Secretary Clinton, but in your statement you did point out that administrative and security consequences would be appropriate if someone demonstrated extreme carelessness for classified information. So those consequences, that would include potentially termination of federal employment?
Correct.
It could include revocation of security clearance?
Yes.
And it could include ineligibility for future employment in national security positions, correct?
It could.
Now, would you, as the FBI director, allow someone in the employ of your agency to work in a national security capacity if that person had demonstrated extreme carelessness in handling top secret info?
The best answer to that is we would look very closely at that in a suitability determination. It's hard to answer in the abstract, yes in all cases, no in all cases, but it would be a very important suitability scrub.
So there would be instances where someone could be extremely careless but still maintain confidence? I mean, we have a lot of people who are very competent in this country who would love to work for your agency, but yet it would be potentially you would allow somebody to be extremely careless and continue on?
That's the trouble with answering the hypothetical. I could imagine if it was a long time ago and it was a small amount of conduct or something, that's why it's hard to say other than it would be a very important part of
Let's just put it this way. Would being extremely careless in handling top secret information expose an employee of the FBI to potential termination?
Yes.
Why shouldn't U.S. officials use mobile devices when traveling to foreign countries, especially if they're discussing classified or sensitive information?
Because the mobile device will transmit its signal across networks that are likely controlled or at least accessed by that hostile power.
And that's the guidance that the FBI gives all officials when they're traveling overseas. That's still good guidance, correct?
That's good.
How did top secret information end up on the private server? Because your statement addressed Secretary Clinton. You did not address any of her aides in your statement. Attorney General Lynch exonerated everybody. That information just didn't get there on its own. So how did it get there? Were you able to determine that?
Yes, by people talking about a top secret subject in an email communication.
So it was
not about forwarding a top secret document. It's about having a conversation about a matter that is top secret.
And those were things that were originated by Secretary Clinton's aides and then sent to her, which was obviously being her server, but it was also included Secretary Clinton originating those emails, correct?
That's correct. In most circumstances, it initiated with aides starting a conversation. In the one involving top secret information, Secretary Clinton, though, also not only received but also sent emails that talked about the same subject.
And of that top secret information that you found, would somebody who was sophisticated in those matters, should it have been obvious to them that that was very sensitive information?
Yes.
So I guess my issue about knowledge of what you're doing is, in order for Secretary Clinton to have access to top secret SCI information, didn't she have to sign a form with the State Department acknowledging her duties and responsibilities under the law to safeguard this information?
Yes. Anybody who gets access to SCI, sensitive compartmented information, would sign what's called a read-in form that lays that out. I'm sure members of Congress have seen the same thing.
And it stresses in that document, and other training people would get, that there are certain requirements to handling certain levels of information. For example, a top secret document, that can't even be on your secret system at the FBI, correct?
Correct.
So you have to follow certain guidelines. And I guess my question is she's a very sophisticated person. She did execute that document, correct?
Yes.
And her aides, the classified information, they executed similar documents to get a security clearance, correct?
I believe so.
And she knowingly, clearly set up her own private server in order to, well, actually, let me ask you that. Was the reason she set up her own private server in your judgment because she wanted to shield communications from Congress and from the public?
I can't say that. Our best information is she set it up as a matter of convenience. It was an already existing system that her husband had, and she decided to have a domain on that system.
So the question is very sophisticated. This is information that clearly anybody who had knowledge of security information would know that it would be classified. But I'm having a little bit of trouble to see, how would you not then know that that was something that was inappropriate to do?
Well, I just want to take one of your assumptions about sophistication. I don't think that our investigation established that she was actually particularly sophisticated with respect to classified information and the levels and the treatment. And so far as we can tell,
Isn't she an original classification authority, though?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good grief. Well, I appreciate you coming, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record two documents that Mr. DeSantis referred to. One is the sensitive compartmented information non-disclosure agreement. The other one is the classified information non-disclosure agreement, both signed by Hillary Rodham Clinton. Without objection.